Welcome to this SQL and Power BI project. First, we're going to clean some data from the World Food Program. We're going to clean it in SQL, and then we're going to import it to Power BI and make a report. So first, I created a database called WFP. So then I'm going to click on it and import our file that we want to clean. Let's click next. Let's look for our file. And we're going to take this one. And I'm just going to call this food prices because the original name is too long. Let's click next. And this is a preview of the data. And as you see, we're going to have to delete some columns because this column is all NAD. It doesn't make sense to include it, price type and actual flags. So we need to delete some columns, rename some column names, and so on. So let's go ahead. Let's click next, then finish, and then our data is inserted. So let's close this. So first I'm going to type use the WFP database. And I want to select all from our table name, which I think we named it as food prices. Let me go ahead. Let's select all of this and execute. Okay, I misspelled our database name. It's WFP. And let's run that. And you see we have our table. So first thing I'm going to do is let's rename this column admin 1 and admin 2, and also market. I'm going to call the market constituency. Oh no, I'm going to call it city town. Then I'm going to call admin 2 constituency, and then admin 1 the region. So now to rename the column, we have to use the execute keyword, rename, our table name and the column we want to change. And we want to change it to region. And the next argument that takes is column. I'm just going to copy this and paste it 2 more times. Then I change this to admin 2. And I'm going to change it to constituency. And change the market column to, I wanted to put city/town, but you can't do that in SQL, so I'm just going to put city_town. Now let me execute this. Now let me select to see the changes. And you see we changed the names of the columns. Next, I'm going to remove some columns. And I'm going to remove the category because everything in here is the same. Price flag, price type, and currency. So to do that, I'm going to alter table, our food prices table. Then I'm going to type the drop column. I'm going to drop the category, price flag, price type, and currency. Execute this. And let's look at our table. And you see we deleted our columns. Next, I want to concatenate commodity and unit. Instead of having unit in its own column or kg in its own column, I'm going to put it here. Unit, I'm not going to put it here, but let me concatenate it for now, and then later on we will remove unit from the column. So let's do that. To do that, we use the update keyword. Update prices. Then we have to set the commodity column to commodity plus some space. And I'm going to call our unit column. Let's execute that. Let's take a look at the changes. And you see here, we concatenated the values in the commodity and unit column. So next I said I want to remove unit. Wherever there's unit in these rows, in the commodity column, I want to remove it. So we have to use our update, set commodity. Now I have to put the table name to equal replace. And you see SQL Server Management Studio is giving us the arguments inside of the replace function. So we're gonna say we want to replace unit, and we want to replace it with nothing. Now let's execute this line. Let's take a look at our, and it did not do the changes. Let's see what's wrong. Okay, I think the reason why we haven't seen the changes is because there's a space in front of unit. So let me put a space in front of unit here, and then let's execute. Let's take a look at our table. Okay, that was not the issue. I misspelled the table name. So let's try this again, and it should work. And you see the unit was removed. Next, I want to replace this kg with a lowercase kg surrounded by brackets. So I'm going to just copy this, Control C. Then I want to replace kg with lowercase kg in brackets. Now let me run that, execute. Let me put a select statement down here so I don't have to scroll up every time. Select all from, oh no. Select all from food prices. Let's run that. And you see our changes have been made. Next, let's drop this unit column. We'll use the alter table function, the name of our table. Then we're gonna say drop column. We're gonna drop our unit column. Let's execute this. Let's take a look at our changes. And our unit column has been dropped. Next, I want to drop the region, constituency, city, town, because I'm going to upload another table, which is like a dimension table that also has the market ID. So we won't need these columns since we're going to have another table that has these columns and it's linked together with the market ID. So now let's do that. And just copy this. I already dropped the unit column. So I want to drop the region, constituency, the city, town, and also the latitude and longitude. Make sure my spellings is correct. And let's execute this. Let's take a look at our table. And you see our food prices table is starting to look like a fact table, except this commodity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another table and put the commodity and the ID into that table. And then I will delete the commodity column. So now I'm going to create the commodity dimension table. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to select the distinct values from commodity ID and the commodity column. Then I'm going to use the into keyword. Then I'm going to call out the new dimension table commodities table. And then I'm taking that from our food prices table. Let's execute this line. Let me refresh this. Take a look at our tables. And you see we created the commodities table. Let's take a look at this table. see we take the distinct values from the food prices table. Distinct just means that it takes all the different values in the column. It doesn't repeat any values. So now that we have our commodity dimension table, first let me see if there's any other changes in from food prices. Any other changes we need to make? Okay, let's round these two columns into 2 decimal places, because the price in USD, we're referring to currency and we want it in 2 decimal places. So to do that, we use the update food prices, and we want to set price to equal, we use our round function, round price to 2, and we also want to round the USD price to 2. Let's execute this. And let's take a look at our changes. And you see the changes has been implemented. Let's also drop the commodity column since it's already in our commodities table. And you scroll down a little bit. Alter table food prices. And we want to drop column commodity. Let's execute this. Let's take a look at our table. So now our food prices table is now looking like a fact table. So now let's import the markets table. Go to task, import flat file. And I'm just going to remove the WFP. Next, click next. And then click next. Our data types is okay. And let's finish that. Let's press close. Let's refresh this. Take a look at our tables. So now let me take a look at the dimension table we just imported. This should be all from. Let's execute this. And we'll have to do some cleaning up here also. So now let's rename table. I think I can just copy this and make some changes. Control C. Control V. And this is going to be markets num. I want to change admin to region, the admin to constituency, and the market to city and town. Yes, so let me execute all of these. And let's look at our table, and we change the column. Let's also round the latitude and longitude. Actually, let's leave it like that. We will, if it needs to be rounded, we'll just do it in Power BI. So next I'm going to drop this column because it's not needed. So we're going to use the alter table, markets num, and we're going to drop column country ISO 3. Let's execute this. I think I spelled country wrong. So it says country ISO does not exist. So now let me execute and it worked. Let's take a look at our table. Yeah, so our second dimension table is also clean. So now that we're done cleaning, let's select each of these tables. And this one is the execute. So this market, we're going to save each of these as a CSV file. I can directly connect them to Power BI using the SQL server connection in Power BI, but I don't want to have Power BI SQL server plus the software I'm using to record this video on at the same time because it will really slow down my PC. So I'm going to export each of these to a CSV. But before you do that, make sure you go to Tools and Options and go to Query Results, SQL Server, Results to Grid, and make sure you have Include Column Headers when saving or dragging from the Results Grid selected, and then press OK. And then also make sure you have this Result to Grid selected. You might have to restart your SQL Server if you didn't have this. So once I run this query, I come anywhere in my grid and save the results as, and I'm going to save it as markets. So let's save that. Then I'm going to execute this one. Then I'm going to right click, save the results as, save it as a CSV. I'm going to call it commodities. I save that. Then I'm going to execute this last table. I'm going to right click, save the results. I'm going to give it the name food prices and save. So now let me look in my folder, and I saved all these files. So let me go ahead and close SQL Server Management Studio and open Power BI. So now that you have Power BI open, let's go to Get Data, and let's get text.csv. And let's open our food prices table. Let's load that. We did all our editing and transformations in SQL, so we can just load it. And you see our food prices was loaded. Next, let's get our other tables. Let's bring in commodities. And let's load that. And then let's load our last table. Let's go to our table view quickly. So the next thing we have to do is create a date table. So let's go ahead and create a date table. And then we're gonna call our table date, and we're gonna set that to calendar auto. And what that does is that it brings a range of rows starting from the lowest date in our model to the latest date. So press enter. The next thing we have to do is mark it as a date table so we can do time intelligence functions. So let's turn that to on and choose the date column, and let's press save. So next, let's create a year column, and we're gonna extract the year from this date column. So let's click new column. So I'm gonna call this column year, and then I'm gonna use the format keyword, and it takes our date table and date column, and then we need to use the format, and I'm gonna use the full year. So let's press enter, and you see the column has all the year. So now let's go to report view, and I'm gonna put all the measures in a table. So to create a table, let's go to enter data, and I'm gonna call this table measures, and let's load it. So to create our new measure, let's click on the ellipsis and click new measure, and we're gonna call this measure the average price in Namibian dollars. So average price NAD, and we set that equal to the average function, and we want the average of the price column in our food prices table. Now let me remove these brackets. I don't know why it's... And then press enter. And here we created our measure. The next measure we're gonna create is the max price. We're gonna use our max function. Take the max of the price column in our food prices table and press enter. And another measure we're gonna create is the min price. Then we use our min function of the price column in the food prices table. Let's press enter. And the next measure we're gonna create is the previous year price. So I'm gonna type previous year price. I'm gonna set that equal to, gonna use our calculate function. And we're gonna calculate the measure we created. And we're gonna use the date add function. And we're gonna say we want it 1 year back. So we have to put year here and the -1 to bring it back to get the price of the year before. We can use same period last year, but I'm gonna use date add. And then let's add another bracket and let's press enter. And the next measure I'm gonna create is the year-over-year percentage. So I'm simply gonna put YOY percentage and set that equal to. So I'm gonna use a if statement, and I wanna use the has one value function, because if a year is not selected, Power BI will still give you a value. And I only want it to give us the year-on-year percentage if a year is selected. So if the year is selected, let's press shift and enter to move to another line. I'm gonna divide the average price minus the price last year. So to get the price last year, we need to use the calculate, the average price, then the date add, then we use the date column in our date table, and we want it -1, and then we put in the year keyword. Then we put 2 brackets, comma, and let's press shift enter. And we want to divide all of this by the previous year price. So it's just going to be this again. So Control C and Control V to paste. Let's close these brackets. I think we need one more bracket. Yeah. No, it's still saying that something's wrong. Oh, we need a bracket here. Now you see all the mistakes it's done, and we need to remove this one. So now let's press enter. And I'm gonna do one more measure for the average USD price. So I'm gonna say average price USD and set that to the average function. And we're gonna get the average of the USD price column in our food prices table. And let's press enter. And that will be it for our measures. So now let's click on this new card. Let me close the filter panel. And on the new card, I'm gonna put the average price, the max price, the min price, the previous year price, and the year-over-year percentage. So now I'm gonna click the formatting tab. Let me bring this, go to layout, and I'm gonna go to grid. Let me also add the USD price. And then I'm gonna make it 3 by 3. So let's minimize this for a little and let's bring it here. Next, I'm going to bring in the slicers and I'm going to choose to slice by the year. So slicer settings, I want it to be a drop down. Let's minimize this a little bit, make it a little smaller, and let's bring it up here. Let's bring this down a little. Let's bring this here. Then I'm going to create another slicer, so just press Ctrl C and Ctrl V to paste. And for take out the bill, I'm going to take out the year, and then I'm going to put commodity. So now let me select a year. And our card is not for some reason not responding. And one thing I forgot to do, the reason why it's not responding is because I didn't create a relationship between the date column in the date table and the date column in the food prices table. So now let's drag it here. And it's going to be a one-to-many relationship from the date column to the date column in the food prices table. Make sure you have this option selected, make this relationship active, and press save. So now all our relationships in the model is intact. And this is what you call a star schema. So now let's go back to the report view and it should update. So now that we linked our date table to the food prices table, our yes slicer is now corresponding to our cards. So what I'm going to do is change this to percentage, and how you do that is click on the measure and then you press this percentage here and you see it's been changed to percentage. So next, let's create a line chart, and this is going to be the average price by year. So on the x-axis, I'm going to drag the year. And on the y-axis, I'm going to put the average price in Namibian dollars. And it's showing only 2011 here because our slicer is selecting 2011, so let's unselect that. And as you can see here, it's starting from 2022 and going down. So let's go back to our table view. Let's select the date. So let me put new column. So then I'm going to call it years and set that equal to year from the date column. And let's press enter. And we're going to sort it by years. Let's go back. Let's put year back. Okay, and now it's sorted correctly. So I'm going to do some formatting. Let's make the line black. And then I want some markers. So the data labels on. And then our markers is on. Let's also the color for the data labels. Let's go to values, color, because it's a little hard to see. And we don't need to show the y-axis, the values in the y-axis. And that's good enough. And when we hover, I want to put have it display by default the year over year and also the USD price. So we have to go to build, and we go to tooltips, and then we add the average USD price to the tooltips and also the year-on-year percentage. So when we hover, we see the year-on-year percentage and also the USD price. So next, let's create a simple table. In the columns, I'm gonna add the constituency, also the average median price, the year-on-year percentage, the max, the min, and also the previous year price. So let me do some formatting. Let me go to style presets, see which one looks good. Let me do a horizontal grid. Let me increase the size of the column headers. And close this. Let's see what other options we have. Let me also increase the values. Let me set a background color for the headers and a text color of white. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that. But because I had this open, I wasn't able to see it, and I thought that's how it would be. So let me just make some alignments. Go back to format quickly. Let me increase the values a little. Okay, that's good. Now let me put a map. Go to build, bring back this format, and let me drag latitude here. Let me use this map instead. So putting the latitude and the longitude and the bubble size, I'll just use the average size for the bubble size. And for the tooltips, let me put the region. Average price, I thought it would be rounded by 2 decimal points. Well, let me change it to currency and set it to 2 decimal places. So now let's hover over these points. And yeah, the Omaheke region, commerce. Format this. Let's turn off the title. Let me do an Arial. Let me see another style. Let me see dark. And let me set the bubbles to green. Let me see what grayscale looks like. And if you're following along, you could put it to whichever styles you like. It's just your preference. Okay, so let me see how the road look like. And let me see Arial again. Let me set the bubbles to white. Nah. So what I'll do, I will set the style to dark. And I'm gonna leave it like that. As you can see, I'm indecisive with these visuals. Let me go to here and the call out values. Let me bring it down to 30. That's much better. Let me put the $ for all these prices. So USD price. I'm gonna convert it to dollar with 2 decimal places. And I'm gonna do the same for the max price. And then the min price. Let me set it to 2 decimal places. Let me change this heading. So I'm gonna edit it by saying average price in Namibian dollars by year. So next what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna insert a text box. And give it a font size of 14. And I'm gonna call it Namibia World Food Program Report. And next I'm gonna create pages for each region. And then I'm gonna filter the page by the region. So let me add a page here. And let me add filters on this page. And then I want to filter it by region. And the first one is going to be Irongo. So let me call this Irongo. Call this page Irongo. And then I'm just going to copy. I'm leaving space here so I could have a page navigation. So I'm just going to select each visual. Wait. Let me make sure this is in line. So select each visual. Let's press Control C. Let's go to the Irongo page. Let's press Control V. And let's keep them synced. And now let's create another page. Let's filter this page, and this one is going to be hard up. Then I'm going to press Control V to paste. And then we're going to get all the data for the hard hop region. And we can keep it in sync. Now let's create another page for the Karas region. And let's press Control V to paste. Let's create another page for the Comas region. Let's press Control V to paste our visuals. Let's sync. Let's rename this the Comas region. Let's do another one. Heki. Let's press Control V. This will be all the data for Omaheki. And another page. Oshana. Control V to paste. And this page is going to be all the data for Oshana. And another page. Let's filter this page with this one. Let's name it to let's paste the visuals. I'm pressing Control V. And finally the last page. Filter this page by the Zambezi region. And let's press Control V. And we're done. So let's go back to page 1. And let's go to Insert. And let's go to Buttons, Navigator, press Page Navigator. Let's go to Format. And let's look for the style. I want it to be not a drop down, but a towel. Yes, grid layout. How would that be all the way at the bottom? And I want it vertical. So let's adjust it. Let me rename page 1 to, I'm gonna call it Namibia. And let me increase the font. And let me also make it bold. Yeah. So let me press Ctrl C and go to each page, and I'm gonna paste it there. Press Ctrl V. Let me make it a little bigger and take it away from the edge. Make it a little narrow. So now let me press Ctrl C. Let me delete this one. Let me go to Hard App. Paste this here. So I'm just pasting it to each page, as you can see. And since you're building this report, if you published it, your consumers of this report would be able to just click this. But for us, since we're in Power BI Desktop, we have to press Control before we click. And then it will take us to whatever page we click on. So we can navigate by commodity. Let's press on Brechin, and then we see the price of Brechin from 2010 and all the years leading up to 2022. You could see the average price, the max price, when this is for all the years. And if we go to year, let's say 2012. So from 2011 to 2012, the price of Brechin went up 3.4%. In Irongo, the price of Brechin actually went down. And this is a reminder that I got this data set from the World Food Program website. Let's see, in Irongo, how much maize meal was in 2012. The average price was $8.65, and compared to last year, that was an increase of 13.61. Let's remove the year filter, and we see the line chart of the change in prices throughout the years. And we have this map just displaying where the Irongo region is. So this is my report that I made. First, I cleaned the data with SQL, and then I use Power BI to make reports. Let me remove this filter. And if you don't want the filters from this page to affect any other pages, or filters from one pages to affect any other pages, you go to View, Sync Slicers. You select the slicer, and then you could unselect. If you don't want the slicer on the Namibia page or the overall page to affect Irongo, you just unselect Irongo and unselect each of the other pages that you don't want the slicer to affect. This eyes, it means that the slicer won't show on the page, but I'm gonna leave it on all the pages. I didn't realize I misspelled Namibia. Wow. Go on each of the pages and correct my mistake. Yeah, so I just had to make this correction. So this is the report. It's an interactive report.